Thanks for remaining for our panel. Today we're going to talk about customer success metrics that matter. I am Helen Crowley, and I'm VP of Customer Success at Socialbakers, which is a social media analytics company based in Prague. We have about 340 people working at Socialbakers with 2,500 clients, or customers, I should say. And I have a great panel here full of different types of businesses and slightly different customer success roles. And one of the reasons that we wanted to talk about metrics is that, as we've heard in a number of the sessions today, churn is a real sticking point for SaaS companies. Customer success is certainly not a new concept, but it's very new for SaaS because it's all about the subscription economy. It used to be that you would, as a salesperson, you would turn up to your client and they would give you a large amount of cash, you'd hand over the product and say, I'm out of here. But now, that customer is still standing in front of you every month, every year, and they have to decide to buy again. And so that's why customer success really does matter. And when you're in customer success, it's all about the data, and you need to know what to focus on and when. And this is why we have this team here who have direct experience with that. So if you could introduce yourselves, tell us a bit about what your company does, what you do there, and kind of what stage you're at as a company, because I know customer success changes depending on the maturity of your company. So, Zoli.
Thank you, Helen. I'm Zoli. I'm the Director of Customer Care at Prezi, the Zooming presentation tool. I was the 4th employee to join in 2009. We started from Budapest, and now we have an office in San Francisco as well. We're a 200-plus employee company now, 75 million registered users. And my team, Customer Care, includes support, content, learn, internationalization, and part of customer success as well. So I kind of represent the customer care side of the business.
Great. David.
Cool. Hi, so my name is David Apple. I'm the Director of Customer Success at Typeform, which is an online form and survey solution that's beautiful. When I joined about 2 years ago, there were only 15 of us, and now there's about 140 of us. So we've been growing like crazy. We have over 1.5 million people who have used Typeform. And about a year ago, we raised our Series A of $15 million, led by Index and with participation from Point9 and Connect Ventures, who I think might be here. So the way the customer success team is structured at Typeform is in 5 pillars. So customer support, customer experience, education, account management, and sales. And my team has grown from about 4 people when I joined to 25 people now.
Right.
Great.
Okay. My name is Krish. I'm co-founder of Chargebee. We are a subscription management and billing system that complements payment gateways like Stripe, Braintree, and GoCardless. So we are now a 72-member team with presence in Chennai and in San Francisco. We are backed by Axel Partners and Tiger Global. We serve customers in 48 countries, about 2,600 customers. That's the stage we are at.
Great, thanks. And David, I know you have some sort of numbers that you can share with us. So we were talking about the subscription economy and how important, therefore, customer success is, but just how important?
Sure. So what we're looking at is retention. And studies show that it costs from 7 to 10 times more to acquire new customers than to retain your existing customers. So in most cases, it's spending $1 on retention is a better investment than spending $1 on acquisition. Also, by expanding or improving your retention rate, you're increasing your lifetime value, which means that each of your customers becomes more valuable, and therefore you can invest more money in acquiring them. So it has a dual benefit there. And finally, your churn rate will determine your company's growth rate. So if you have like a fixed amount of new business coming in every month, your churn rate can determine whether you grow exponentially, linearly, or completely fail. And Krish and I were talking about it, so I know you have some numbers to share about it.
The anecdotal example is if you are acquiring 100 customers every month, at the end of the second year, right, you would expect to have onboarded 2,400 customers, But if you have a 5% churn rate, by the end of the second year, you're going to have only 1,400 odd customers out of the 2,400. But if you have 1% churn rate against a 5%, then you have close to 2,150 customers by the end of the second year. So that stark difference of more than 700 customers leaving through your leaky bucket, right? So it's very important to understand all the different things that can do to hold them in your funnel, right? And that's what this is all about.
Great, thanks. That is a stark difference. The way that I think about customer success is in three different areas. So I believe, and I shouldn't take credit for this, this is from Dan Steinman, who is here today and actually wrote the book on customer success. The way that they talk about it is it's a philosophy. So it's a way of thinking about your customers. It's an organization. So I work in customer success. These guys work in customer success. But then also it's a discipline. And it's really great today we have different roles here today. So obviously we have you, Krish, who's the CEO and co-founder. You have a slightly different view on the importance of customer success. And I guess you're sort of responsible for the philosophy of customer success. Would you say that's right?
Right,
yeah.
right, yeah. Because most of us don't have when do you know that you actually need customer success as a function, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't start with that. But it starts with the small things that you do, even starting with customer support, right? What do you measure from the beginning? For us, one of the most insightful things that we did from the beginning is classifying every ticket that would come in, every request. You would classify it as a prospect and what kind of question it is. Is it about a feature? Is it about a comparison? If it's a prospect. If it is a customer, what module are they asking for? Do we need to do anything to assist them? Things like that. And then when you start measuring that as an aggregate data on a month-on-month basis, you would know that these are areas that we need to improve on when it comes to onboarding. These are areas we need to improve on when it comes to retaining the customer. So I would say it's not really about the tools or the numbers as well, but that comes later. But in the early stage, it's more about how you are actually looking at making sure that the customers are, you are really paying close attention to the customer and you are enabling them to get the most out of your product.
Okay, so let's just stick on that one then. So what would if you had to choose one metric that you were to monitor when it comes to customer success, what would that sort of North Star be?
When it comes to customer success as such right now, it is churn, which is the customer churn and the MRR churn. And then we break it down into the voluntary and involuntary churn in every one of these aspects, right? For a business that is in the payments part, we make money only when the customer makes money, which means that we focus a lot more on ensuring that we are not losing customers because they are not getting the most out of the product, but if they are actually shutting down their business or they are pivoting, and that kind of natural churn is totally okay. So that's why we break it down into these aspects of customer churn versus MRR churn.
Okay, great. David, what's your North Star?
Sure. The key metric for customer success at Typeform is net MRR churn. And to explain what that means to people who don't necessarily know, you have customer churn, which measures how many customers you're losing from the beginning of the month to the end of the month, which is interesting, but it doesn't tell you if you're losing your most valuable customers or your least valuable customers. So then the next level of kind of sophistication that you'd be looking at would be MRR churn, which tells you how much revenue you're losing from one month to the next, which gives you more insight, but it doesn't give you the full picture of how much value you're retaining from your existing user base from one month to the next, because it doesn't take into account expansions and contractions. So someone jumping from one plan to another and spending either more or less money, and reactivation. So someone who canceled and then a few months later joins again. So net MRR churn encompasses all of those behaviors, and that's why it's our key metric.
Okay. Zoli, how about you?
I would join Krish for just one sentence before I would get to that. So we believe that customer success, and to your point, is also kind of should be a company-wide philosophy. So it's not only for the customer teams or the customer success team. It should be product development. It should be marketing. It should be finance as well, to ask the right questions about how can I make my customers successful, especially in today's world when the post-purchase experience and customer success is so crucial for brand loyalty. So we try to incorporate that and kind of put the customer to the front. About the key metrics, our North Star is yearly net renewals. So it's fairly simple. It's like the number of customers renew versus the number of customers registered the previous year. And especially with our new business product, which we launched this summer, that targets the work group use case at businesses. And we also measure team expansion for the success team and for the customer teams and the sales team on the North Star level, sort of say.
So if we go sort of a level deeper, so the different pillars that you were
Yeah.
talking about before, how would you measure those different areas of customer success?
Yeah, I really like this metaphor. I think if you break it down from kind of the lag indicator also, as they say, like from the North Star or like your wide goals to the lead indicators, those things that you can actually measure as you go forward. So for renewals, it's the actual repeated feature usage that we are focusing on, as well as awareness for team expansion. So we kind of try to optimize the time to value that customers are getting, and it's also value is defined on the feature level. So we pretty much know that certain features and the more usage and the sooner the usage actually happens to those certain features, the better renewal rates we get. So as we roll up the teams that work against it, we specify different metrics and goals for each team, seeing if they can move the needle there and help our team users and our individual users to be successful.
Okay. And how about you with your different pillars, David?
Sure. So as I said, we have 5 pillars. Customer support is focused on first response time, customer satisfaction rating, and now we're starting to look at cost to serve as well. Our customer experience team is involved in a lot of one-to-many campaigns, and their key metric is NPS and net MRR churn, but for their segment, which is kind of our lower value customers. Then we have education, which creates all of our content. The key metric there is mostly about ticket deflection, but we also have some engagement metrics that we look at. Account management is also NPS and net MRR churn, but for higher value customers, so the customers in their segment. And sales is new business and expansion.
Okay. Do you look at any other metrics? I know you talked previously about the reasons for churn.
Right. So when it comes to, so one of the interesting things that we learned by tracking customers who are actually leaving is that we introduced a drop-down where we would ask customers, why are you leaving, right? But not by asking them to write, but by giving specific options. And collecting this information like, okay, I'm shutting down my service, I'm pivoting, or these features are lacking. There are features that are lacking, or I'm switching to another service. So by giving these options, we actually learned a lot of things about why customers are leaving. And as long as we are actually keeping the involuntary churn, as long as we are actually keeping the voluntary churn really controlled, right, I think we are doing a very good job. And then we started paying attention to, for the voluntary churn, are they able to make money? And are we enabling them to be able to do more of that? Became the focus. So that we are not looking at everything in one bucket and trying to think either we are doing great or we are not doing great, right? Instead, by segmenting this data, we are able to get a little bit more clarity on what is it that was missing that we need to address.
That's an interesting one because you obviously focus on a segment which is smaller, SMB type businesses, and therefore it's more likely that you have this kind of involuntary churn. That must be killing every month.
Well, it's not really in your control, right? Getting them on board, ensuring that they are successful is more important, right? And as long as you are actually able to bring the top of the funnel really, you're able to populate the top of the funnel nicely, then that's good. You can only control the controllables, right? There are certain things where if they are actually really trying hard at their business and they are saying, no, subscription is not for me, and they're moving on to something else, that's not something that we can control. But what we try to focus on is how do we get them faster to the point where they are able to do transactions so that we are really measuring true activation. How long does it take for them to get truly activated? That is a controllable. Them saying, no, I'm going to leave subscriptions is not something that we can control, right? But at least if we are measuring it, then you'll at least be focusing on the right things.
Yeah. Just moving on now. So if you think about, maybe there was some analysis that you did one time where you really, you got a true piece of insight where you thought, that's where we really need to focus. Can you tell us a bit about, what that aha moment was? What about you, Zoli?
I would probably mention two of these things. One was when we started with onboarding. we did a lot of user research and a lot of feedback processing when we kind of understood how the first few weeks are so crucial in product adoption, and we need to focus on onboarding our customers and provide the value to them as quickly as possible. And when we started, we pretty much just started with an MVP and reached out, logged the results in a spreadsheet, and kind of went from there. And kind of identified those features which we needed to focus on. And now we see that those users, those customers who go through onboarding are creating 10% plus more content, and they're much more engaged as well. This is new for us, and it was kind of an aha moment. Another is content, and how content and good knowledge base and good educational content and trainings are so crucial. And probably it's different for every product, but Prezi is a complex productivity tool. So our customers love to consume our content and help themselves with it. And we know that for those customers who touch our knowledge base, they're more than 30% more likely to renew. And there's always this chicken or the egg question, right, that we kind of meditate on. Like, are they more successful because they're more motivated in the first place, or are they more successful because we have that service available? But since they're there and they use the service, we not only kind of maintain the service, but we also invest in it and extend it.
What about you, David?
Yeah, at Typeform, the most meaningful metric that we found is from our churn survey. So we have a mandatory churn survey. When someone unsubscribes, it pops up in a survey. The first question is, can you tell us how your experience was using Typeform Pro? Score from 0 to 10. And our average score is around 8. So that means that our customers, even when they're churning, are really happy with our product. So then we ask the follow-up question, then why are you churning? And it turns out that about 70% of them are churning because they had a project and they were successfully finished it, but then they don't have a follow-up project to do afterwards. So they churned. So that made us understand that our focus should not really be on making them more successful with their first project, even though that could be valuable, but that's not where the real opportunity is. Mm-hmm. The opportunity is inspiring them with new use cases and to do more with.
So then it was more about creating content, marketing materials.
Yeah, well, so an example of something we did was we try to detect when someone's project is ending, and then we send them an email kind of proactively saying, hey, what's your next Typeform project going to be? Here's a few options, some inspirational ideas. And with regards to that metric, we also saw that there was a lot of other metrics that kind of confirmed that this was the case. When we look at our cohort analysis for churn, we see that most of our customers who churn in the first couple months. If they stick around, then they're there for a while. And we also saw that the metric that was most correlated to retention was creating more Typeforms. So all of those seem to indicate that people who have more use cases and use Typeform for more things tend to stick around more.
Do you have any obvious?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Your renewals.
Sure.
Your renewal cycles are very different, right? What was that aha moment for you guys?
So I think the most recent one has been looking at renewal rates of first-year customers. The renewal rate for our first-year customers is very, very different to later years, which sounds kind of obvious when I say it now, but the moment we saw the numbers, it was very obvious where we needed to put our resource. So we've now refocused a number of our teams on different things. So, for example, we have our education team. They're constantly looking not just at the overall health of our customer base, but separating out those first-year clients. We've put more of an emphasis on the onboarding period. We also know that if a client is in our kind of sick or in danger category 3 or 4 months before the renewal, they're far less likely to renew. So just kind of tweaking where you put your resource and where you put your focus and slightly breaking out the analysis has been really important there. Of course, retention is a lag metric, so who knows whether it would have made a difference. But that's something that was very, very obvious to us just a few months ago. Have you got one?
Right. For us, it's the time it takes to enable them to set up the payment gateway and the transaction, right? And once they start invoicing their first customer, we know that they are on the road. So getting to that point and making sure that they are completely enabled to get to that point, that realization that is true activation took a long time for us, right? When they put the card in and then they are activated, you tend to think the customer is activated, but they are really not, right? So what is the critical point, they get real value out of your product. Right? Getting to that point and hand-holding them through that has been very important.
Right.
That was the aha moment for us.
So, Krish, as the CEO and co-founder of your company, you must have customer success people come to you and say, we want to invest more in customer success. How do you judge the ROI of a customer success team?
Right. Okay, so if somebody asks, that's a good problem to have for us, right? If they say, I want more people. So the interesting thing is, it's about capacity planning the way I look at it, right? So when there are, 30 to 40% of the requests that are coming into customer support, if they are from prospects, right, which is the case for us, we know that it automatically qualifies themselves, the prospects qualify themselves and helps the sales funnel. The same way, if we are able to, the number of chat requests that are coming inbound, and if there is nobody to attend to it at that point, then it's a capacity problem. So pretty much all these customer touch points, if we are able to have a way to measure and then figure out how do we enable this to be done either smarter with tools or by adding people to it, I think that kind of is an indicator for ROI in our case. So we just look at some of these metrics to say, okay, so should we be adding more people to this function? And that is how we look at it.
Yeah. Is it the same for you, David? Or how do you convince your boss?
Yeah, it's a tough job because our retention, our metric is net MRR churn, which, as you mentioned earlier, is a lagging metric. So that means that when we take actions to improve net MRR churn, we can only see the impact, several months down the road. And the problem is that your action is not the only thing that happened. There's also product changes. There's also marketing may have changed something. There might have been a big bug, and all of those things also impact churn. So it's hard to show causation between an action that you took and actually changing the metric in net MRR churn. So what we've done is we've analyzed what sub-metrics we know impact net MRR churn. So in our case, it's creating another Typeform. So that campaign that I mentioned earlier, it increased people who saw that campaign were 18% more likely to create a new Typeform than the people who didn't see it. We A/B tested it. So we can show that our actions are having an impact, but then calculating the actual ROI is not possible. They're difficult, at least.
Yeah. What about you, Zoli?
So for us, it also varies for different teams on the customer side, and there are some teams who actually even make money. Like we have the billing phone team, and for example, who help customers to pay and go through the registration process, and they actually are paying for themselves. But when it comes to majority of the teams, it goes back in our case to leveraging usage. And for example, for the content team, as I said before, we set up the entire self-help system in a way that we try to measure everything they do when they touch that content. So we measure the search, we measure time they spent in the articles, we measure what they do after they read an article, how much time they spent, their retention to the videos and screencasts we have, and if they go back to the editor and finish their presentation after they read an article or engaged with our knowledge base. And if it comes to support, it's also about can we actually have them getting back and creating more and adding more content, use the features. And for success, it's more like the kind of the raising the awareness, team expansion, and retaining those teams.
Something that we've all talked about. I mean, when you talk about metrics, it's all about data, but there's a lot of analysis that's going on here. There's a lot of number crunching. In your teams, do you have dedicated resource for that number crunching, or are you using kind of a central pool of people?
We have a dedicated business intelligence analyst or customer intelligence analyst, and he is my right hand. So he's into the numbers and provides the insights. Yeah. Not only for support and customer success, but also for sales and kind of the entire customer side. So yeah, we do.
Yeah. Do you, David?
Well, for me, up until recently, I kind of took it upon myself to really understand the metrics, because I think as this topic of this talk is about, is the metrics drive everything. We need, in order to solve a problem, we have to understand the problem first. And to understand the problem, we need to understand the metrics. So I spent a lot of time learning, mixed panel and amplitude and behavioral cohorts and all these things to really understand what's going on. But now I have the luxury that I hired a business insight analyst to take a lot of that work away from me.
Yeah. Great. Well, all that remains for me to say is thank you very much to our panelists, and I hope you've enjoyed the session.
Thanks.
Thank you.